Hello and welcome to the draft review of the T1 and DRX series in the LCK playoffs. So after the regular split where T1 was able to get the 5-game winning streak, DRX with the slump of the 5-game losing streak. Two worlds clash here in the first round of playoffs for both of them. After Nongshing was nearly able to get the upset against Hunger Life, DRX, they are the dark horse and they might look to repeat the same. Starting with the game 1 bans here, Silas, Tristana and the Renekton. A bit all over the place. Silas, it may indicate a Seraphine pick and the Tristana may indicate a Kaiser pick, so they're kind of preparing for these situational picks that might come through. On the other side we see the trifecta of red side bans, especially against T1 with the Thresh and the Senna. A bit more special bans against the team, against the bot lane especially. Oh yeah, bans absolutely great here for DRX. One here starting with the Udyr pick. It's a bit of a pick away against Pyoshik, who is the one who debuted the Udyr in the LCK. But because it's not a real problem, and getting the Udyr or the Hecarim in this trade-off, it's kind of fine for both. On the other side again, as mentioned, the Hecarim is then picked up from Pyoshik, who has the Pentacle in his last series. I imagine he's quite comfortable with him. Zoe for Solka, one of the fewer champions that he's really comfortable on. The Zoe and the Orianna being the key champions here for him. Now blind pick for Karma and Victor into the Zoe. So now blind pick, a bit questionable again. It doesn't make too much sense. Yes, he is a bit safe on the red side and eventual counter picks could be chased after. With the help of the Udyr of course here, so that is entirely possible, but you don't really have to show too much here, as the Gnar is not even in any shape or form flexible in maybe the support position like Gragas would be. So just because Kana can play him, it's a bit silly. The Victor into the Zoe in the isolation during the laning phase, it's fine. Then later on Victor's problem is long range, so that's not too great either. The Jace is then picked up to amplify Zoe's long range and answer Victor with his short range problem, and obviously into the Gnar. This is also a matchup that the Jace is winning. Here is the danger though of the red side terrain against the Udyr and the Gnar. The chase down does exist, so he has to be quite careful with that, but he will still be able to get ahead early on. In the next ban phase we see some early aggression, AD carries banned away from Teddy. Nothing too major on the other side. Champions that can use two different modes if you want. So Galio obviously can be an amplifier of engage or the Hecarim, but he can also with his W quite shield engages against the backline here from DRX. The Rel, similar story, can do these things as well, but not as great as the Galio. Ezreal here, a slippery AD carry picked up that can somewhat deal with the potential engage from Udyr and Gnar, and is more self-reliant. And also Zoe, Ezreal, Jace, we see where we're going here. Hecarim has to accept that he's not engaging, but rather has to ult defensively and peel for his backline. Kaiser, very questionable pick. Victor already had some issues with range, so being elected here into the Zoe was already kind of meh, but Kaiser is very questionable. Into the Ezreal, yes, she can 1v1 him quite handily, but she further falls down into the problem of long range. This is something we have seen with her, especially in the past, considering Tristana and Aphelios matchups. Leona is accompanying her, so in the 2v2 they do have a lot of power with the synergy Leona has with Kaiser. And Leona's ultimate also very nice against pokecoms in my opinion, as it's not so hard commitment, but can catch them up from long range. Braum here is the last piece for DRX comp. A pick not seen too often, sadly though. But here he is rounding up the comp quite nicely. Ezreal Braum not only super safe, Braum also answers engage quite nicely, especially movement speed based engage. He's more of a peel champion, as you all know, in contrast to the Alistar that is being picked ever so often. Dragon X here with a huge draft lead. If we talk about all the lanes, they do have either defensive capabilities, neutralizing capabilities, or even the edge. And yeah, that is also within more or less even jungle matchup. Dragon X has a good chance here to get ahead early, and then with the nature of their comp, they can really ride that horse down. In the end here, T1, they were really robbing this one game. Obviously, as I mentioned, the draft edge is heavily in Dragon X's favor, considering though that T1 is just otherworldly in terms of macro and more so their mechanics and teamfighting. They were able to wrestle out and muscle out Dragon X in the end, with obviously them doing quite poor macro decisions on their own. As Dragon X is kind of known for, right, this team is very young and quite inexperienced. So yeah, T1 picking up the first game here. In the next game, Dragon X, on the blue side banning again the two champions that they need to do. They don't need to ban Seraphine, obviously, on blue side, would be quite foolish, so they add the Renekton. Don't do that. On the other side here, it looks a bit all over the place. Tristana again, helps the Kai'Sa priority, but the Hecarim and Udyr bans are quite interesting, because then the Lilia, obviously, is the next jungler in line, or in priority for most. So with them not banning Seraphine, maybe they're looking for a Lilia Seraphine trade, anticipating Dragon X to not pick the Seraphine, which is a bit foolish if you consider Dragon X match history. Solskjaer, I believe, has played 3 Seraphine games already, so it's not like Hanwha Life, where Chovy does not really play Seraphine, so this strategy does not really work here, and especially not if you're not picking the Lilia then yourself. So obviously, as I alluded to, Seraphine being then picked by Dragon X for Solskjaer. And T1 answering with Varus, very smart and very great. In many cases Varus is able to outrange some of these really healing and supportive style champions like the Seraphine, like iterations of Lilia and the Senna also, as I talked about in the last review. So that's already a great pickup here. The Nidalee already, though, taking it down 10 notches. It's just super questionable. So you prepare a Lilia pick with banning the other like S tier or like high tier junglers, but then you pick Nidalee, which is poor man's Lilia. So this is just very stupid. Doesn't make any sense. Also Varus, yes, he is blue side, or like blue terrain, red side bot. He still wants to play mostly aggressive with the lethality build. So Nidalee, a jungler that really likes top side and especially top lane ganks, doesn't really fit in that idea as well. So she has to stay bot and farm her camps in the top side so much. So it's already not looking too great. And Lilia obviously can defend way easier with just her overall kit. On Lilia being picked up here for Pure Shake. And again, another round of blind Gnar. Gnar here again, he's a bit strange to pick Gnar into Nidalee. So Nidalee, as I mentioned, indicates top lane focus, and while Gnar can be somewhat safe with his mobility and Mega Gnar, he also has the mini Gnar where he can be CC locked and then bursted, as we have seen so often, right? Renekton should lose into Gnar, but then Gnar is mismanaging his pacing and gets W'd, and then the Nidalee Spear comes out of nowhere. So this is obviously not optimal, but getting Seraphine Lilia, that's something you rarely see. In the next ban phase, Dragon X taking away defensive supports that could help the Varus to sustain and to be safe of potential hard engage that could come out from the Gnar and the Seraphine ultimate. Maybe even the Lilia ult if you consider this pickup. By the way, Silas, also a bit strange. He has ults to steal, not this one. 2 good ults to steal, and Koreans somewhat regard him as a counter to Seraphine. But he also plays into her weaknesses as a melee brawler. He obviously is nearly always in range of all her spells. So he's not really doing the thing that Seraphine doesn't want, and that is long range. So just a short bit on that. You want to continue with the bans. Lucian for the Silas matchup and the Gragas. which, yeah, he is quite decent against these two picks here. With his ultimate, of course, he can do quite a bit. T1 continuing with the rel pick up. So they think hard engage may be the option against these, quite difficult champions. So that might be a good idea in some cases, but the other champions they have are not really playing with that idea. And considering that Carrier is not really the best rel player, which is a bit strange, but yeah, rel also not going too well into protective comps usually. Xayah Rakan. Xayah not too great into Varus, which is a bit strange, but considering that, this is even more safety, even more protection for herself, with a cleanse as well, with just the overall theme of their comp. If T1 does go in, there are so many tools for her to stay alive, and that's just overall quite decent. Individually for the lane, of course, it's not the best. Rakan, even though he's not too great in most spot, here against rel, again not too great, but against Nidalee and Varus, with these supportive, defensive supports banned, he can be quite good. Lastly, he did the Sion, which is again another big question mark. So T1 here, Varus, Nidalee, and well, Sylas a bit. He's a bit excluded from that. They're going for mid-game poke, long-range abilities, which, again, do fairly well against Xayah and Seraphine. But then they go with Rel and Sion, so they handshake the hard engage that, DragonX really can play around quite easily. Also, of course, that's not a good matchup. That's one of the matchups that Sion is really losing quite a bit because of the W from now, right? Nidalee and Sion, even though you might not think about it, is a good gank setup, right? There's little many champions can do against Sion R. Sion R Q follow up with Nidalee Q is absolutely dead now. But again, Nidalee and Sion, even if they get ahead, they are not doing anything against this DragonX comp here. In the end, DragonX finally get the win, but this was another slugfest where T1 was nearly able to get away with double murder, or I don't know. It's just insane how good these players are, and with macro decisions they can stay even though they are not really able to win any fights against this. It's just quite sad. Why do you draft this if you're just better in nearly every position? So DragonX equalizing the series 1-1, but they're actually ahead 0-2 in terms of drafts, right? But here in the third game, Sylas is being banned by T1 themselves, so maybe they hope for Seraphine again, or maybe they just evaluate him as a strong pick. I personally like him, but just because he's fun to play, not because he's really good. He doesn't really have any items that he can build. The champion that is rushing Zhonya's is in many cases a flawed champion. And just overall, Sylas is not in a good spot yet in the moment. So Zoe and Renekton, again, more random bans. Kingen, he does play Renekton a bit, but I am not too sure if it's really ban worthy. Zoe against Solka, a bit more comfort, but it's a bit just ban whatever you want. It's blue side, so you don't have too much onus on yourself. DragonX continuing with the trifecta of T1 bans, nothing more to add. Udyr here again being traded with Hecarim for Pureshik. I think it's fine. Udyr obviously has the advantage of the early game, where he can bully the Hecarim with invades quite a bit. Now in the top lane again, blind pick for Kingen. He has played 11 games of Nara. I think he was 6-5 or something. So he's surely accustomed to the pick. On the red side here, he can make a bit more use of his durability, of his mobility with his E. But blind Nara, again, it's not something that usually works. In most cases, the enemy does not counterpick themselves with a Sion. And here Kana goes for the counterpick and not self-counterpick with the Irelia. The matchup sadly not seen too often. I think Irelia is 6-1 against Nara. And it's surely an easy matchup. Even I can win that. So here one goes with the counterpick, which is good to see. Adaptation in draft. something they are surely not too accustomed with, sadly. Twisted Fate here for Faker, a pick that he was known for quite a while in the past. Maybe you remember 2019 Worlds, especially group stage against RNG or something like that. Yeah, it really fits his playstyle, like the Galio as well. He's the equalizer in lane and then roams around, helps his teammates. I think that's about his style, and a champion like Twisted Fate can really help him do that. And again, Irelia with the Udyr already is strong 2v2 top lane, and the support of Twisted Fate surely will add only positively to that. Orianna here, not only because Solka's comfort, not only because of Teamfight Wombo, but also Orianna into TF is quite decent, as she can somewhat hold him to the tower, and if Faker then should opt to roam, he would lose quite a bunch of CS. So it's in multiple cases a good pick here, and also outscales the Twisted Fate, of course. In the ban phase here, T1 takes away some engage options. Twisted Fate and Irelia, well, Irelia, she is quite mobile with her Q if played correctly, but Twisted Fate obviously a target for many hard engage sources. Sejuani a bit questionable, maybe they know something about Becker playing her in scrims, but with the jungler already locked, this might seem a bit foolish, I don't know. On the other side, Dragon X here banning AD carries, so T1 here, you could identify this as a quite aggressive comp, especially in the mid stages, or like early to mid stages. Aurelia's level 1 and 2 is quite powerful, and so they might want to take away some of the more aggressive and dominant AD carries for Teddy, so T1 cannot really play 3 winning lanes, or maybe isolate TF's options of roams, right? So now he can go top lane and help the already winning matchup, but if bot lane is a bit more even, then him going there will not result in too big of a snowball, or maybe not be that what he is looking for. That could be an idea behind this. Obviously, Varus and Kalista are also champions. In any case, that Teddy is playing absolutely great, which, to be honest, are many champions. Alistar then being blocked, so keeping the AD carry last, which can be good, but in most cases you want to show the AD carry first and then counterpick the lane matchup with the support. This is something we have seen often, but considering that there are AD carry matchups that are quite favorable and counterable, right? If this would have been in Kai'Sa, this would absolutely be astonishing pick, and we know that Teddy is quite stubborn in terms of Kai'Sa priority. But we have to mention, so far in this series, it has died down quite a bit, which is obviously a big positive. Alistar here again can somewhat peel against these two champions as they are quite linear in their approach, and Twisted Fate again rather mobile. We have here more ball carriers as well, and overall strong front line and strong team fighting, which is the way Dragon X should play if they can't get miraculous draft edges, right? It's just the easier way to play for the worst team. This is, I think, the way they should try to go about it, and see if T1 is not really able to get the early game leads they need to. Ezreal and Galio here, the T1 bot lane. Galio working with Twisted Fate. Now they have even more global pressure, and Galio's W also always kinda nice, even though Dragon X has a lot of hard engage here, so it's not as vulnerable as it can be in some cases. Ezreal also a bit more of a self-sustaining AD carry, so you can, if you want, go all out on top side and leave AD carry a bit behind here. In terms of DPS, obviously the Ezreal not too known for tank shredding abilities, even though with Sorelda's Grudge and the armor penetration that build usually has, he does have the ability to damage tanks, but of course not the DPS champion that a crit AD carry like Tristana or the Xayah would be, for example. The Tristana here lastly, she's not really doing too much for their comp. Yes, she adds the needed DPS, as we have bruisers, we have tanks. Orianna again more of a shotgun, so DPS here was needed, and she has some peel ability with her W and her ultimate against an Udyr and an Irelia dive. but she's not really doing anything too outstanding and morphing in terms of the draft here. So everyone seemingly having figured out that they don't want to practice anymore, and yeah, and yet Faker here really shining through. I think the first 4 ultimates were all resulting in kills, so yeah, really finding the great timings with his ult. Yes, he was losing some CS, as I mentioned, that is the nature of this mid lane dynamic, but yeah, if you can get some assists, some kills for yourself, and then also elevate the level of your teammates through this, it's just great. Hana though, yeah, the top lane matchup was a bit iffy, dying solo against Gnar, but yeah, in the end, he's still played quite good. In the teamfights, obviously, T1 a beast, and with a comp that is not super bad, and yeah, getting the early game leads through the roams. They were actually able to teamfight Dragon X teamfight comp. It's just slapping them around with their gold barrels of money. So we come to the next game number 4. So another side selection switch. We go about the bands as usual. Senna, Thresh, nothing again too special. They added the TF here, which I think is quite fine. It was not the greatest problem, but with Faker picking up play of the game for that game, it's fine. It's absolutely a good decision. Get that X factor off the map. Eliminate variance if you are not too familiar with it. T1 here, the Udyr, it rises Hecarim priority and Lilia priority, so yeah, maybe they want to play around that. Then the Seraphine, luckily again banned on the red side, not leaving her open again. And the Braum, a bit strange. It somewhat indicates that they want to go for like mobile and squishy or just hard engaged champions, which obviously he's quite good at. Especially, considering his slows and passive. Champions that really rely on movement speed are also quite hurt by him. So yeah, I really like that he is rising in priority in terms of picks and bans. Always good to see. The now blind pick for Kingen again, with Hecarim open as well. It's super questionable. Like, there's no reason for that. So again, Hecarim has been a priority for Pioche personally, and yes, Gnar on blue side is a bit more safe, but still, counters do exist. We just saw last game the Irelia. Now maybe Kana has a bit more practice and won't die early on, and maybe manage his wave not like an Iron player. But yeah, it's just super arrogant, I think, or like super short-sighted. Maybe he thought like the Irelia or the counter pick wasn't the problem, it was the TF. Maybe that's also the reason they banned him, that they can blind pick Gnar again. I don't know, it's questionable at best. Zoe and Hecarim, super comfort picks for Faker and Cos respectively, good 2v2, decent scaling, and yeah, it doesn't really limit them in their comp too much, right? On the other side, Volibear and Orianna. Volibear, strange that we only see him now. It's patch 11.6, so he has been buffed, and yeah, he doesn't really take any damage in the jungle. Now Volibear, it's a decent top lane 2v2. But yeah, Volibear farming obviously quite slower than the Hecarim, which is a bit of the issue in his priority, in obviously comparison to Lilia and the Udyr as well. Oh yeah, that's a bit of the downside with him. Orianna with, again, 2 good ball carriers, so Dragon X continuing with the teamfight wombo combo strategy, which I'm honest, like I would recommend them that. They were not going to snowball early games, they're not going to play Nidalee, Renekton stuff and try to win and stomp. It's not really what they can expect, so yeah, just go for like wombo combo, try to win a teamfight in the late game and yeah, steal a game. That's honestly one of the only ways like worse team can try to win, if hope for a miracle. They could also add variance in their play, but Dragon X also not really the super creative team in that sense. So I think this approach from them is quite fine. Which is not fine is the Akali. So Akali most likely with the Zoe already picked going into the Gnar, unless there's some switcheroos happening. and Akali also does fairly well against Gnar, not really in super early stages, but yeah, once level 6 rolls around, yeah, Gnar is easy eating. Questionable though is, like, now you have 2 high AP sources, and yeah, why not play Irelia? So like Irelia is the easier champion to play, I think, in terms of the 1v1 matchup against Gnar, and yeah, it's just strange, especially considering that Kana's performance was not all that stellar in the game prior. In the next bans here, DRX banning, yeah, a super powerful bot lane combination that T1 might elect here. So again, yeah, Eddie's Kalista being on theme with the mid-game aggression here, and the Galio. I mean, not only is Carry amazing Galio, but he's amazing on many champions. Maybe not Rel, but many others. And obviously the synergy of Hecarim and Kali with the Galio engage, it's just super powerful. So again, these bans are fine. Banning AD carries that are a bit more defensive and self-reliant and also scale quite good. So yeah, T1 doesn't really want to scale with their comp. DRX has some scaling here, but Volibear obviously does not scale into infinity, and Gnar in most cases also not. Orianna, yeah, she stays somewhat the same champion, her damage just gets amplified of course. So yes, they do have some scaling components, but the absolute scaling value of their comp would be determined by the late game damage output by the AD carry, so banning 2 of the more popular ones. And again, remember, no one is picking Jinx and Aphelios with Thresh Band, or like most people aren't, so this would limit the pool for Bao to the Varus and the Ezreal. These are the AD carries that we see in Korea at least, so again, something like Jhin or whatever, Misfortune, Ashe, we won't see that here. So T1 picking up the Varus themselves, getting more range against Orianna, also great. They have a bit of an issue here. Zoe and Varus obviously want to stand in the back, and then Kaz and Kana with their divers, they want to really dive deep into the enemy team comp. So yeah, there's an issue of T1's comp being maybe a bit too stretched out here, which leaves room for Rakan and Gnar to like penetrate themselves, which could cause very messy fights, which is not something you want if you're the better team. Again, eliminate variance. So the Leona pickup, not only as a counter to the Rakan, not only helping with early game prior, not only being good with her ultimate against Orianna, she's also can function as a diver, but I often talked about it, that she's quite capable of defending against linear engage from a Volibear, from a Gnar, from an Udyr, and of course somewhat against Rakan, so she can function as this middle part in T1's formation, and not leave this gap open, and then she can easily move forward and backwards like if you know soccer or football, like a libero back in the days, but it doesn't matter. So that's a good roundup for their comp. Again, T1 here has drafted a comp that has the owners on themselves to get ahead and has the means, but their champions are more difficult to play as well in comparison to Dragon X. So I think it's a fitting T1 comp. They have done this in the past years repeatedly, so it's not amazing, but we can trust them, and especially this roster, that they can pull this off. But I mean, it's one of the better drafts today. Again, it's not something too outstandingly great, but I really like that they have picked up the Varus, and with Irelia and Akali, Kana also showed more diversity in the top lane, and not one Renekton game. I'm happy. So as I somewhat teased it, T1 here is getting the 3-1 win with this game, and how surprising this game, they get their best draft, at least in my opinion, and somehow this game is one of the cleanest and one of the most one-sided ones, where they are able to completely smash DRX, like in laning phases, in mid game, in, you might call it late game. In every stage of the game, T1 was just multiple steps ahead. And yeah, TDA carrier, again, the bot lane, it's just so easy. Well, it's just so easy if you have the overall better team. So T1 here using their early game advantage to then like completely snowball the game. If you have paid attention to the game, if you have watched it, you saw some of the stats. T1 is like astonishing in the snowball department. If they get the lead early, they are sure to be able to snowball that. Like they are the first in gold lead at 10, second at gold lead at 20, first at gold lead at 30. So they really keep that gold lead and push it all the way down into the enemy's throat and then finish them off. So yeah, a 1-3 series here for T1. Not really what we wanted, right? It was like 3-0. Everyone was super sure of it. At least T1 won, which absolutely covered the expectation. But yeah, maybe it was experimentation with the draft, right? Trying new picks, leaving Seraphine open. You could really imagine that this was the case, considering what happened the entire split. I just hope that they're not continuing with their experiments in the GenG series on Sunday. So yeah, talking about the series on Sunday, obviously I'm going to cover that as well. The series on Saturday, Hanwha Life versus Damwon Kia. So if you're interested in that, I might make a short review of the highlights and talk about some of the things we might have seen here. It's a really interesting series, even though Hanwha Life is hard team gapped. Achived versus Damwon Kia, Achived versus Showmaker is obviously always a really interesting matchup. And yeah, maybe they have something up their sleeves to surprise us. I mean, who knows at this point. DRX obviously here going out. Yeah, they started spring quite strong. Maybe it was just because the other teams were like finding themselves. But yeah, I think it's a good start, right? Many of these players are quite young and well, they're doing fairly well, obviously in comparison to rookies like Kana and Carrier. That's a different story. But yeah, I think DRX, they have some parts that they can work on, and I think that drafting was rather fine. Like, it was not perfect, but the champions they elected, while they were not the perfect fit for these situations, they were able to make sense at least, and that they were able to identify the power of certain champions like Seraphine or scaling in general. Yeah, shows that they have at least a decent grasp on the meta. Of course, things like Gnar, things like Rakan in so many situations, these are issues, and especially if you go into the games and watch them macro game, that's a whole lot of troubles. So yeah, getting the early out here might be good for them, so they have a lot of time to practice on these fundamentals and rotations in the game. Maybe even the communication is a bit off. Like, Yoshik seems to be the team leader, but who really knows? So yeah, I sure hope for them that they can come back stronger in the summer split. Again, they have showed that they do have the abilities to hold on at least sometimes against these better teams. But not stretching the video way further than it already is, I'm wishing you all the best of times, and stay safe. Till next time.